So, Ukraine spin, what's going on? Patrick Lawrence, it's funny, Reef. We covered Patrick Lawrence last week, and he posted he did an original for Sheer Post, which is in the
not to be confused with Jennifer Lawrence or the other Lawrence. That's the actor.
Martin. Yeah. No, not to be confused with either of those. But so this is in Consortium News, which is another indie media award winner, like Sheer Post was. Patrick Lawrence very easily could have been, and they put their caveat disclaimer on this one. The views are solely those of the author. It may or may not reflect, but I have a feeling that in this case they actually do reflect the views of the editors and those of Consortium News, who are amazing, outstanding people. I've actually been DMing and messaging back and forth with Kathy Vogan, who's one of the editors and founders. She's fantastic. Go follow and support Consortium News if you can, please. They're one of the few independent, really uncorrupted outlets that's calling out what's going on with imperialism. So is Covert Action Magazine, the one before. They do outstanding work again since 1978. The new one again, Consortium News. Patrick Lawrence, War as Presentation. And this is really talking about narrative stuff. November 1st, this is the day after Halloween now. As the U.S. midterm elections approach, the gap between Western media's depiction of the war in Ukraine and the actual war waged on the ground appears to be widening more dramatically, right? I don't think that's surprising. There's... Oh, sorry, those are voters.
Wait.
Yeah, the kid.
Wait.
You see the kid? Oh.
Pokemon go to the polls.
No!
Yeah.
No! Oh, God, she has infected our stream. Go away, David C. Go away, David. All right. Of course, we are urged that... And I believe Patrick has a British accent, but then he came over here. He lived here for a long time. His bio is on at the end. We're urged at every turn to dismiss everything Putin says is upside down to the truth, right? Those of us who keep our heads while all about us, others are losing theirs and blaming it on us, risk dismissal when we take the Russian president seriously. Never mind. It's simply time to dismiss those who dismiss. In his long interviews with Oliver Stone 5 years ago, Putin observed that it is impossible to work with the Americans because everything is held hostage by their election cycles. So true. Too bad so many among us are not capable of listening to the Russian leader on this point and learning from it something about how our post-democratic system malfunctions. Right? Domestic politics, what plays in Peoria and all that, determines foreign policy. This was Putin's point. And what electoral politics determines foreign policy becomes presentation, which is to say unserious, because all the good people of Peoria ever get from Washington polls are unserious presentations of events and policies that have little to do with reality. He's right, okay? America has started wars because of what political candidates think will play in Peoria at election time. I think we're seeing that play out right now. Countless lives have been sacrificed to the cause of this or that political candidate or party. Paul Pelosi, what? No, I didn't say that. As the late Robert Parry, who is the founder of Consortium News, and Gary Sick established, there is ample reason to suspect that the Reagan campaign conspired with Iran during the 1980 presidential campaign to delay the release of American hostages at the U.S. Embassy in Tehran until after the November 4th elections. Whatever happened between Reagan's people and the clerics governing Iran, the great communicator went on to present himself as the strongman savior of the hostages who were released on January 20th, 1981, of course, the day that Reagan was inaugurated after trouncing Jimmy Carter at the polls. This is all known history, right? And now we have the Ukraine case, and we need not bother with ample reason. It is an open and shut, evident at this point, that we witnessed two wars as the American armed forces of Ukraine face off with the Russian military. Let me read that again. It is open and shut evident at this point that we witnessed two wars as the armed forces of Ukraine face off with the Russian military. There is the presented war, the meta war, you might say, and there is the waged war, the war taking place on the ground. Nothing meta about it. Wow, that was a real Freudian slip. American Armed Forces of Ukraine. It might as well be. I mean, we all know that.
Yeah, pretty much.
All right, and they're actually, this is one of those pictures. This is from Wikimedia Commons from Wikipedia, not WikiLeaks. This might even be WikiLeaks, but this is Putin and Oliver Stone sitting down. The Biden admin has been committed from the first to fighting the presented war, the war of appearances, because maintaining the public support for this dreadful folly is essential to keeping it going. And with the midterms near, the administration and the clerks in the liberal press serving it are pressing the presented war with the vigor of D-Day generals. Right? Stay with us, all you wavers of blue and yellow flags. Forget about inflation and what you have to pay for a gallon of gas or a box of Wheaties. We're getting this done. The tide is turned. The good, courageous, self-sacrificing Ukrainians are winning against those looting, war crime committing, village destroying, brutal, they are ever and always brutal, Russian forces. Don't lose heart. Support us on November 8th as we support Ukraine. Wow, that really does sound like a Democratic Party ad. Yeah. I just threw up in my mouth. Sorry for even having to say that.
Yeah.
That is the pitch. This is the presentation. Right. Parenthetically, I do not think this rubbish will make a whit's difference when those Americans are foolish enough to go to the polls next week. Right. But the White House and Democratic field have to put this across because the Republicans are hammering them daily about the irrationality of their profligate commitment to proxy war that simply cannot be won on the ground. And then there, of course, is the Frontlines coverage ban, which Patrick goes into, and that gets into our friend Eva Bartlett, of course, who's famously in the Donbass. The presented war has been at variance with the waged war more or less since the Russian intervention began on February 24th. This is why Western correspondents, in any case apparently short on guts and integrity, are pleased enough to conform to the Kiev regime's ban on coverage from the front lines. What? Yes. There's nobody embedded with you. Well, also because they don't want to get the reporters killed because all the Ukrainian soldiers many of them are actually getting killed. So that's
I've actually seen it. I've seen a bunch of reporters that go there and they never go up to the front line. They're always in the back. And
well,
then
they're not allowed.
Like a couple of bombs go off and they run away.
Like Malcolm Schmantz.
Yeah, like little Dylan Bum Burns.
Did he even go there? By and large, these correspondents report the presented war, but the gap between the presented war and the waged war now appears to be widening more dramatically. And here's where it really gets insane. It's an emperor has no clothes. On one hand, the Ukrainians' celebrated counteroffensives launched in August appear to be exhausted with no significant gains achieved. You also have Russia's call up of as many as 300,000 reservists and the appointment of Sergei Surovkin, who's a no-nonsense general that led Russia's campaign against the Islamic State in Syria as the overall commander of Ukraine operation. On the other hand, you have the midterms. Yeah. Since the summer, the Democrats' prospects on November 8th grow ever dimmer. Those prosecuting the presented war have grown even more incautious in their departures from the waged war. They're just being ridiculous. I could be wrong, right? But this latest phase in the presented war began October 12th. The midterms a month away when the New York Times quoted Lloyd Austin saying that Ukraine's offenses will continue well into the winter and that Russia's recent attacks on Ukraine's infrastructure have fortified the West's unified resolve to continue supporting the Kiev regime. Holy shit.
Doesn't Russia really fight good during the winter? Is that where they're...
That's like their thing?
That's their thing,
That's
right?
that's kind of like their thing.
Kinda, yeah. So
there's
Jen Stoltenberg and Lloyd Austin. And here he continues, right?
Yeah, go ahead.
I expect that Ukraine will continue to do everything it can throughout the winter to regain its territory and to be effective on the battlefield. Okay? But we're going to do everything we can to make sure that they have what's required to be effective, meaning $100 billion and tons of weapons. Yep. But they're still losing. And those weapons are going to end up in God only knows whose hands.
Oh, wait until everything... say we get out of this when it's over. All that stuff is going on the black market, as it already is, though, but it's going to get really bad.
Yep. Wyatt Reed, too, by the way. Shout out to Wyatt Reed. Shout out to George Eliason. Shout out to all of the reporters that are in the Donbass region that are trying to report from the ground and from the front lines to give us the story of what's really happening and call out the Nazis for being Nazis when they act like Nazis. But here's what's weird. Again, Patrick's pointing out that Austin's comments seem to me to mark an important point of departure from reality. Neither of the above quoted assertions is true according to all available evidence. That's bad. Ukraine's counteroffensives after its forces pushed through an open door in the northeast have nothing to show for themselves and are in for a debilitating winter. The West's resolve, no secret to anyone, even the Times, looks increasingly wobbly, especially as the Democrats are about to lose Congress. Basically, they're going to have 8 weeks to spend a shitload of money, and then they're going to lose the ability to continue to fund this thing. But here's the thing about the presented war. What's said in its cause does not have to be factual or in any way true. It simply just has to be said over and over again. Fake news, right? And what do you mean? It's wrong, right? And this is how. On Sunday, the Times published a long piece by Andrew Kramer under the headline, "With Western Weapons, Ukraine is turning the tables in an artillery war." The subhead was even bolder. In the southern Kherson region, this is a quote from the New York Times, Ukraine now has the advantage in range and precision guidance of artillery, rockets, and drones, erasing what had been a critical Russian asset. Yeah, okay. Wow, I said over my fourth morning coffee, turning the tables, erasing Russia's superiority in artillery. This is a lot of turning and erasing.
Drinking my latte.
Right?
Watching the,
The Kramer's report rests on interviews with a Ukrainian lieutenant, a first lieutenant, a major, and a Polish consultant sitting in Gdansk. All of them, fair to say, troops in the presented war. They are full of ballsy, let-me at 'em remarks. We can reach them and they cannot reach us. One shot, one kill. It'll be Stalingrad in winter for them, which tells us precisely nothing. Kramer's assessments, all nothing more than the echoes of the above noted sources, are in this same line. There is no mistaking the shifting fortunes of the Southern Front. Ukraine now has that artillery superiority in the area. This firepower has tipped the balance in the South. Again, saying nothing. These statements are absolutely perpendicular to what one reads from sources other than Kramer's, and he should be ashamed to present them as reliable. And here's a doozy from the first lieutenant. We hear a lot of rumors that they're abandoning the first lines of defense. This is what people are saying. A lot of people saying they're abandoning the first lines. God almighty, this is so pathetic. Kramer seems accurate here. Kramer. The first lieutenant is almost certainly hearing a lot of rumors to this effect, but that's it. I read a lot of reports that Russian forces, having evacuated many residents of Kherson, are sending in engineering brigades that are assiduously fortifying the city in preparation for whatever defense may be necessary in the coming months. They're also rebuilding buildings, from what I understand. I've seen pictures of them.
What seems accurate here?
I tell you, it's got. I don't know. It has got to the point where I read Kramer's pieces. I need a safe place where they have cookies, board games, and fluffy blankets, and no mainstream dailies, no NPR, no BBC. His work.
Kramer's, you say?
Yeah, Kramer. No, Kramer. George. His work is presented.
George.
His work is the presented war as it is fought, ever more fantastically as the midterms approach. Right? And of course, then we get into the Duran, Alexander Mercouris, who's the London-based podcaster. He spends an hour each evening analyzing the state of things on the ground in Ukraine, using all available sources with the due caution that this work requires. These sources are many-sided: Western mainstream, Western independent, Russian mainstream, Russian independent, Ukrainian of all kinds, other sources entirely. He's to be credited for the exceptional granularity of his reports and his often nuanced political analysis. As, for example, his recent take, on the collapse of the Ostopolitik tradition in German politics. Okay. Mercouris astutely, I don't know, do you watch the Duran, Chris? You ever watch their stuff?
No, I really have to start though.
I think I've heard of them.
They're good. They were on Jimmy Dore pretty recently. They just got on Rockfin also. They're on Rumble now. But he astutely points out that the Russians
did like Hungry Like the Wolf and
Duran, yeah.
That's Duran, not the Duran, not
the
Elvis,
Duran,
and not Elvis Duran, the morning show host either, but the Duran. And there's
confusing.
It's Alex Christoforous is the The U.S., the American host, and then Alexander Mercouris is so it's Alex and Alexander are the two hosts for the Durand. Good dudes. Really good analysis. I know they've been on with Hinkle as well as some other, again, Jimmy Dore. I'm pretty sure that T-Lav and some of the other folks have had them on as well. Again, they're pretty decent sized channel, but
yeah.
So he astutely points out again that the Russians are little concerned with the presented war and prosecute the waged war according to substantive, tactical, and strategic considerations alone, not what any given move will look like when Western media gets their hands on it.
Yeah,
in his view, right? He's just fighting a war. He just wants to eliminate the Nazis, and now he wants to get rid of the government there. I mean, that appears regime change is he does say that he wants to sit down and have peace talks with Zelensky, but Zelensky has been under orders so far to not until the other day.
I think at first he was ready to do the peace deal. I think now it's done. I think Russia's like, no, we're just gonna have to get rid of the regime.
I think so too. So in Mercouris' view, Ukrainian forces have nearly shot their bolt. The Western powers are running out of weapons to send them. I don't know if that's necessarily true. Russian forces are beginning to gradually advance once again, which is true, and the buildup of Russian troops and materiel, anyone who looks can see, many portend one or another kind of major assault, possibly a knockout blow in the coming months. And while Patrick has not reported directly on any of the questions raised here, the preponderance of the evidence presented leads me to conclude reports such as Mercouris's are far more accurate than what Western media offer, and that these media trade primarily in the propaganda of what the presented war is made. I think Moon of Alabama also falls into where Mercouris is going. They've done outstanding work analyzing the actual fronts and where the battles have taken place and where territory has been gained and lost. So it'll be interesting to see what happens to American media's reported from Ukraine once the midterms are over and there's nothing more for Democrats to win or lose. And that's what I wanted to report on today. And I'm going to do that after we're done here. At a certain point, the realities of the waged war will be too large and imposing to distort, obfuscate, or leave unreported. In the case of Russiagate, and again, we saw Russiagate ramped up today. Again, Tom Hartman. I saw Jimmy shared a tweet, and he said these people will never stop. All right. In the case of Russiagate, when the Times and all the media that ape it had finished all their lying and disinformation, and the house of cards had collapsed, they tiptoed quietly out the side door. Not really, because they're still doing it. All right. Yeah. I see no chance of this in the Ukraine case. American media helped to make up Russiagate out of whole cloth. The Ukraine conflict is too real for all that. Yeah. And his expectation, again, the admin and these media will, post-elections, wage the presented war with less intensity, possibly bringing it at least slightly more in line with the waged war. They will have to think of something as gradually, but almost certainly, reality is going to catch up to them, and they can't make a war disappear that they're losing. Right? So this is what I wanted to point out today, was that I missed yesterday at about 5 o'clock, the Washington Post, of all things. We got a message. I got a message on my phone popped up from the Washington Post through Apple News, because I'm a sellout and I have an iPhone. Yes, I still have an iPhone. But Washington Post. Thank you. Did something crash?
No.
That was a soundbite. Okay. Washington. Thank you. Biden administration privately listen to this one. Biden administration privately encourages Zelensky to show Russia that Ukraine is open to negotiating to end the war.
Yeah.
Secret. How they know?
Guys, COVID's over. Ukraine's over. Time to move on to the next thing. And we know what that is. It's either going to be the superbug and or Taiwan. That's for 2023.
Yeah, right, I think once
they
we
had
start
us the first half. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, once things start heating up on that side, then they'll slowly phase this out. So this way it doesn't look like they lost it. So they'll just stop talking about it. Media will do like a blackout on Ukraine, and they'll just be constantly talking about China and Taiwan. And that's
we're fucked.
That's pretty much what it boils down to. And
I like it better than anything else.
Yeah, we know, Nancy. We know. We know.
Shut up. Eat your ice cream.
Right? Yeah. Yeah, Paul was saying that last week too, but now he's saying, "Get out of my house." Sorry.
Yeah, she really hammers at home
Too
though.
soon. Too soon.
Oh,
Too soon.
Stop.
Yeah.
Too soon.
hammer time.
So,
So
yeah, Patrick
Put a
has
hammer
also
on
been
things,
censored
man.
off of Twitter, but he's on Patreon. His website is Patrick Lawrence, I believe it's .com. Definitely support him too. We featured one of his articles last week. Another one this week. It's an excellent freelance independent journalist. Covers foreign policy, U.S., British stuff primarily. Outstanding. So now we have.
They missed the mark with the Nancy thing. You know, if they had just made him like also have a sickle with it, they could have blamed it all on the Russians. You know?
Oh, dude,
Like-
yeah. They definitely should have
You know
done
what I mean?
that. Blamed it all on the Russians. Yep. Well,
Yeah. The Russians made the guy hit him with the hammer. Like, Putin had a
Well-
mind control device on him.
thank you. Then there was the famous Joe meme of Jimmy Dore standing next to the garage door with the hammer.
That one's good.
Allegedly.
Right.
Paul forgot his safe word.
Allegedly.
Yep.